What's up, Cubs? It's your guy, Walter Boffman. Welcome to the Student Senate debates. Why do we have these debates? To give all of you another opportunity to hear from the candidates. All right, let's go, boys. Come on. The first time you met the men who are running for Senate was by reading the information sent in the Cub News. Copies of this edition of the newspaper are available at the end of the road. The debate consists of the candidates answering questions that have been written by Cub News editors, faculty, and staff. Each candidate will be asked a question and given 1.5 minutes to answer. The other candidate will be given 1 minute to respond to the same question. The procedure will be repeated for each candidate. A total of 14 questions will be asked. As the audience, you can react to the candidates' answers by clapping or cheering, but proper decorum is to be observed. While a candidate or moderator is talking, you, the audience, should be silent. Your attention is needed so the debate can move along in a swift and timely manner. To give everyone an opportunity to talk, the candidate will be timed. The audience's response must also stay within the time frame if every candidate is to have his time. We would now like to begin by having the candidates for the position Sergeant at Arms approach the podiums. Gentlemen, you have 60 seconds to introduce yourselves. Alex, please begin.
Hello, I'm Alex King, and I am running to be your Sergeant at Arms. I believe for far too long that the students of U of D have been kept in the dark from the activities of the Senate. I know, I've been in your shoes, just a regular kid, not in the Senate, and I had no idea. Some ideas I have for the Senate is I'm going to talk to the all homeroom reps and make sure they are relaying the information to all of you. Second, I'm going to have open gym time and open field time like we had during the mental health week, but all year long. Last but not least, I'm going to have tailgates before every football game where you can get some food, drink some soda, and throw the football around. I know that not just me, but every single one of you can do great things for this school, and I believe that we will change the high and we will put on the path to greatness as long as this school is standing in the great city of Detroit. Thank you.
Mr. Schreiner. Check.
Thank you, Mr. Derry. What up, Cubs? My name is John Schreiner, and I'm running to be your next Sergeant at Arms for UAD. The reason I'm running is because I love this school, and I want to give back to the school that I love. If I was elected to be the next Sergeant at Arms, I would treat this position with the most dedication I have in my life. I already have a lot of dedication to this school. I drive 52 minutes every day from Ann Arbor to come here, and it's because I simply love this place. Sergeant at Arms also needs to be a strong leader, and I believe I'm a strong leader through the leadership I've taken as the captain of the lacrosse team, captain of the wrestling team, student activities co-chair, and a Cub mentor, to name a few. The ideas I have for next year include more dress down days, more and better events to replace dances, a spring formal for freshmen, sophomore, and juniors, more leniency on the dress code, cell phone zones, and continuing the fight for informal dances. Thank you, God bless, and go Cubs.
Mr. King, as winner of the primaries, you have the option to respond to the following question first or defer to your opponent. Attendance at Student Senate meetings has always been a struggle, especially with students involved in many different sports and co-curricular activities. In fact, the two of you were both absent from debate rehearsal yesterday. With this in mind, how do you plan on ensuring students attend Student Senate meetings, understand the value of the meetings, and positively contribute to the success of the Senate?
First off, I'd like to apologize to everyone for missing the debate meeting yesterday. I was having some family issues. Secondly, I'm a firm believer in the significance of talking to a man face to face. I know that it's much easier to make promises over texts and emails, and I believe that that is wrong. When you're talking to a man face to face, you have to look him in the eye and then say what you're going to do. And if you don't do it, you're going to be feeling a lot more guilty than when you just send a text. I also believe that if we have the rules in writing, it'll be much easier for a senator that does miss meetings to know where he is in the wrong. If we have the rules posted in front of the Senate door, then I believe that it'll be much easier for senators to know what the rules are and know what the consequences for their missing. If they miss one day, I will talk to them face to face and ask them what is going on and why were you not there, and also warn them of the consequences to come. Also, if they miss a second meeting for no particular reason, I will meet with my fellow senators, my fellow officers, and ask them, what should we do about this senator? If they have legitimate, from family reasons, then I truly believe that that is an excuse to why they should miss. If they have no excuses, I will talk with my fellow officers and we will make a plan for what the consequences will be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Schreiner, you now have 1 minute to respond.
I also would like to apologize for not making it to rehearsal yesterday. I decided to finish my research paper instead, and I now see that as the wrong choice. First of all, with students that are missing Senate meetings, I believe right now senators do not believe their job is actually important, and they just see it as something mandatory where they don't make a difference. Next year, I want to get all the senators together and make sure that they are doing the correct job where they are speaking for all students in their homeroom. It is their job to convey the ideas of their homeroom students to the officers. And I believe this is something that has not been going on for the past couple of years I'm here. With the missing meetings, I believe number one, I will talk to them first, me and them. And along that, if they continue to miss it, then after the second or third time, then they're going to have to be removed because they're not doing their job. The Senate is important, and we have to keep it that way. Thank you.
Mr. Schreiner, since Mr. King answered first, this question goes to you. You first. Is vaping still an issue at the high, or has efforts this year to educate the student body of the negative effects of juuling worked? Explain your answer. Yeah, sorry, my bad. Is vaping still an issue at the high, or have efforts this year to educate the student body of the negative effects of juuling worked? Explain your answer.
I believe that vaping is still an issue at the high. It's still an issue in society in general today. I believe it's gone down a lot last year. From personal experience, seeing people juul in the bathroom and such last year to this year has gone down. I believe that the educational piece of it has been important, that people do know what's happening with their bodies. It's still early on with vaping. There's not as much scientific evidence to prove what it really does to your body as it does with cigarettes, so that's why people are still doing it. They still might not see it as harmful as cigarettes, and they think it's cool, to be honest. But I believe the school has done a great job in educating students that it's not the right thing to do. I believe it has gone down. It's no longer a problem as it has been before. And honestly, that's just my complete answer to it. I believe it has gone down. I don't believe it's as much of a problem. I believe it still is a problem, but I believe as a whole, as a school in general, we brought it down, but I believe it's not something that's not going to go, it's not something that's going to go away completely. Today, there's loads of evidence that cigarettes are bad for you, yet we all see people on the streets smoking cigarettes. And I believe that's going to continue with juuling and everything like that. Thank you. God bless. Go Cubs.
Mr. King, you have a minute to respond.
Thank you. I mean, we're all young here at the high. We're all high schoolers. So some of us are going to make decisions that we'll look back on and say, wow, that was really stupid. But also, if we make these decisions, there should also be consequences for those decisions. Being young isn't an excuse to jewel in school. You come here to learn, educate yourself, and mature more as a man. I believe that the school has made major progress in limiting the amount of people jeweling in the school. From Dr. Wolf's video in the news to all the people that have come out and told their stories. I really respect that, and I believe that has really helped the school as a whole. And then also, I believe, we don't have the time, we don't process while we're doing it how bad it is for us and how much this is going to affect us in the future. And I believe that the school keeps on what they're doing, educating students on how bad it is, that we'll make major progress in the school. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your answers. Will the candidates for treasurer please approach the podiums? Jack, please introduce yourself, then Drake, you will follow. You both have 1 minute.
What's up, Cubs? I'm Jack Conroy, and I'm running to be your student body treasurer. If you don't know me, I'm a member of the varsity basketball team and a captain of the varsity lacrosse team. I'm a member of the Frosh committee and a big brother. Some ideas I'd like to incorporate next year are I want a water refilling station on the second floor. Hand dryers in the bathroom need to be fixed. The stall doors need to be able to shut. Dividers between the urinals and new sinks. I'd also like to have a winter formal next year. If you want these things to happen next year, vote for Bankroll Roy. Thank you.
Mr. Jones, you have 1 minute.
Hey Cubs, I'm running for treasurer and I'm running for office to serve at a higher level and to enhance the student experience at U of D. My current experience in Senate has motivated me to serve and make sure every student is involved in the school community. I believe my goals will achieve that result. Those goals are more than one dress down day per month, altering the phone policy, finally fixing the Wi-Fi situation, and making sure every club is heard. In addition to my excellent work ethic, I believe I am also qualified because I have experience as a treasurer. While the treasurer of a teen group, I have managed a fundraiser that netted significant profits to help the needy. So if you want a hard-working, experienced treasurer, then let's get to work and vote for Clarence Patel.
Mr. Conroy, as winner of the primaries, you have the option to respond to the following question first or defer to your opponent. Constitutionally, the treasurer shall make public financial reports for any Senate activity that involves income or expense for the Senate. How will you fulfill this responsibility?
So I was planning to have a monthly report come out in homeroom every month and just list out all the expenses and all the spending we've had and all the revenue we're bringing in.
Mr. Jones, you have 1 minute to respond.
So to make sure I have the most accurate financial transactions, I will ensure that I have all the money collected from the fundraiser or whatever event it's coming from. And I will give a final report every month after the event is over, and announce it either on the Cub News or during the Senate meetings, and ensure that we are raising money to support our clubs and other future events at U of D.
Mr. Conroy, I'd like to ask a follow-up question. In addition to these responsibilities, what would you do to enhance the position as treasurer? In addition to these responsibilities, what would you do to enhance the position as treasurer of the Student Senate?
So I think in addition to all the responsibilities as treasurer, I think that all these ideas that I'm bringing to the table with the water refilling station, the bathrooms, and the winter formal would be a good addition to all these treasurer duties.
Thank you. Mr. Jones, since Connor answered the first question, you'll be answering this one first. This year in the Cub News, there were several editorials questioning the ways club appropriations were determined. What are your thoughts on how money is distributed to clubs? What criteria would you use to determine what clubs get what amounts?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again?
This year in the Cub News, there were several editorials questioning the ways club appropriations were determined. What are your thoughts on how money is distributed to clubs? What criteria would you use to determine what clubs get what amounts?
So basically, clubs, determination of how clubs get their money is based on how much we raise as a school during Pledge Detroit. And the representatives from those clubs asked the requirement of how much money they need for trips or any other upcoming events. So in order to make sure clubs reach the standard of money that they need, we should either help go beyond the standard for Pledge Detroit, the amount of money we raise, and whether it is offering better prizes, such as a student gets a Friday off of school or 4 semester dress down days, then I assure that we'll be able to meet every club's needs and they'll be satisfied with the amount of money they are distributed.
Mr. Conroy, your response?
I agree with Drake on how we need to raise more money so every club gets what they want. However, not everyone brings in their Pledge Detroit money, and there's certain things that we don't really make that much money off of. Like we lost the icebreaker, and that was one of the biggest revenue builders for us. So I think that just incorporating more events and fundraisers would help with that. Also, I'd like to meet with all the presidents of all these clubs and organizations to adjust and see where they could compromise on some of the financial needs and just find a good compromise for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. We enjoyed your responses. Will the candidates for secretary please approach the podiums? Kagan, you will begin, and then Vo, you will follow.
Hi, my name is Kagan Chevrolet, and I'm running to be your next Student Senate Secretary. I've been in the Senate since my freshman year here at U of D, so being highly involved in school activities here at U of D will be nothing new for me, and in turn, I think this will make me a more proficient and effective officer. In addition to my past Senate experience, I've also had many leadership roles here at the High, such as being a vocal leader on the varsity tennis team last season and being a freshman committee co-chair this past year. A few things I would like to implement next year into our Student Senate if I'm elected would be first, somewhat of a playoff and a pep rally where all the IM basketball champions of each grade play in front of the entire school. I would also like to get phone use legal for all students on their off periods and lunch periods. And finally, I would like for there to be more warnings before menial jugs are awarded, such as no ID and unexcused lates. Thank you.
I want to start by giving you the explanation of what a secretary is. So a secretary is the middleman for everything, right? So you have the student body, the student senate, and the school administration. And in the middle of that trinity is where the secretary lies, right? That's where ideas get transferred from one aisle to the other. And so if I'm elected next year, I promise you that I will execute the office of secretary with faith, dignity, and excellence, that nobody else is better for this position than win vote. Remember, Cubs, go win for sec, it's a win for all. Thank you.
Mr. Shutterly, as winner of the primaries, you have the option to respond to the following question or defer to your opponent. Different schools have different reputations. Sometimes the reputation is earned, sometimes it's not. What, in your opinion, is the current reputation of U of D Jesuit or the typical U of D Jesuit student? How are U of D Jesuit students viewed out there in Metro Detroit?
I think the typical stereotype for U of D Jesuit students would be someone who is smart, intelligent, is very involved in their academics. At least for around me, every time I tell people from where I live that I go to U of D, they automatically assume that I'm very intelligent, I have a lot of homework. And I think that around Metro Detroit, U of D students are genuinely seen as men for others and intelligent young men.
Mr. Vo, you have 1 minute to respond.
So the student-wise, I think we are represented very well, right? But in terms of the school administration, I think we have been put in a bad light recently, right? Because the the school administration still refuse to give students in the LGBTQ community the privilege of bringing their own kids to the dances, right? So I think for next year we need to change that, and we need to change all the stereotypes that the student's body has been received recently. So.
Since Kagan answered the first question first, you'll be answering this one. Other than social media and flyers in the hallways, what are some creative ways Senate can advertise and pump up games and other events?
So I think the method of flyers and TV things are effective, but however, the most effective way of broadcasting these games is mouth-to-mouth words, right? So if we're going to have students at these two student sections, we need to make them fun. We need to make them exciting. And what better way to do that than advertising from one student to the other? The current Student Senate has done a great job of doing that, but I think there's a better way to do that. And whoever's going to be a student session co-chair for next year, that person is going to have one tough job to do, and I promise you that.
Kagan, your response?
Yeah, I totally agree with Wynn. I think that as a student senate, I mean, they did a great job this year. I've seen the attendance go up for all sports games very much. And I think that if we had just had like 25 or 30 students every week when there was a big game that we wanted a lot of people to show up to, just to like hype it up in the hallways, talk about it. I think that if students hear other students are going, generally the turnout will be much better. So, yeah.
Mr. Shutterly, this question goes to you first. Over the past few years, candidates have promised a lot. These promises seem almost never to be delivered. Examples include honey mustard offered in the cafeteria, the revival of boot season, and being able to wear fleeces. What will you do differently to ensure that changes are made?
Campaign promises are obviously pretty tough to stick to, or have been pretty tough to stick to in the past. So I just think that for campaign promises to come true, we as a student body need to hold them accountable. Like if you voted for them for their campaign promises, like I think that you as a student should like be asking them what they're going to do to follow through with those promises. And maybe we could even make a committee of some sort that would hold the candidates responsible for these campaign promises and make sure they follow through with them.
Mr. Vo, you have 1 minute to respond.
So I agree. However, I think we need to do a better job of that, right? My ideas for next year will be that I will be the special guest on club broadcast every Friday, just so I can give the students body what the student senate has been going on. And also, it's ridiculous that the current student senate is not transparent at all. We need to have an open door policy so that students can walk into the student senate office during lunch to ask whatever questions or whatever concerns that they have.
Thank you for your answers, gentlemen. Will the candidates for Vice President please approach the podium?
Mr. Price, you won the primary. Go ahead and introduce yourself first for 1 minute.
Hi everyone, my name is Lamar Price II, and I'm running for your Student Senate Vice President. My intention for next year is to make next year the best year at U of D. So overall, my goals are to have a rewards program for all students who attend new events. The goal is to better connect students with faculty and administration. There's a disconnect between what faculty tell students as far as workload and everything, and what students are able to do as teenagers in general. In addition, I plan to have TVs after school and a phone policy potentially. In addition, IM All-Star Games are plausible, and students can also vote on what intramural sports they want to play. In addition, my goal is to better connect students with alumni and mentors outside of the school with careers that pertain to things that students are interested in.
Hey Cubs, I'm Patrick Pullis, and I'm running to be your next Student Senate Vice President. I chose to run for office because I see how much potential our Student Senate has. But if we want to accomplish anything next year, we need to have bold leaders like me who are not afraid to push for real change in the Student Senate. Since the beginning of my campaign, I have focused on representing every single Cub. That's why my biggest proposal for next year is to allow every single Cub vote on important decisions, such as what IM sports we play or what spirit shirts are chosen. I want to give you guys the say. I also want to work with Brother Rice and Catholic Central student governments to give you guys competitive events between all boys schools. How great would it be to have a multi-sport tournament featuring teams from U of D, Brother Rice, and Catholic Central? I think that'd be some great competition. So remember, vote for someone who represents every Cub. Vote Pullis for VP.
Mr. Price, as winner of the primaries, you have the option to respond to the following question first or defer to your opponent. What experiences do you have being a leader in the school and around the community that qualify you for this position? What makes your leadership style more proactive than what we have seen in the past?
So throughout my 5 years at the High, I've participated in at least 10 activities. I've been a chess team captain that has won a state championship and a city championship. I've been a base executive leader, which has taken trips to New Orleans and Washington, D.C. In addition, I've also been an Inkscape editor, as well as many other activities throughout the school. And I feel like the ability that I've been able to do all of these in addition to the schoolwork makes me one of the more proactive leaders around the school. I feel like my experiences being a leader in all the different activities and everything that I do allow me to better engage the students around the school.
Mr. Pullis, you have 1 minute to respond.
saying, since I got here freshman year, I've been involved mostly in the student senate, and I think that's given me great experience to be an officer now. I was a homeroom rep for 4 semesters, and then I'm now a member of the Judiciary Committee, which is a pretty important part of the Senate. So that's really given me the experience, I think, in terms of leading as a student officer. Outside of just leadership, I think I'm an outspoken person. I'm easy to talk to, so that's really important, especially dealing with the administration. If there's a tough proposal that we need to pass, we need someone that's a bold leader. We need someone that's not afraid to compromise, and I think that's what sets me apart from anybody else. It's just the ability to have an open conversation, compromise, and be bold when I need to. Thank you.
Mr. Price, I'd like to ask a follow-up. I'm going to ask you a follow-up. How many students have you talked to since the primaries? And what concerns have they shared with you?
Through social media and throughout the school day, I've talked to about 300 students. So through my social media, I have Instagram, Snapchat, and a website. And I also go around the school and frequently engage with students about what they want to see. Through my homeroom visits, throughout my times at basketball events and other sporting events, my goal is to engage students in what they want to see. And I feel like they've been able to tell me what they want to hear and what they want to happen for the next school year. And I feel like through my experience.
And Mr. Polis, the same question goes to you for 30 seconds.
Okay, well, I can't give you an exact number, but I've definitely talked to a lot of people. I got all of my ideas that I post on my Instagram that I included here. I actually got the idea of working with other student governments from a lot of students that said, the Mercy Dodgeball tournament was great, but imagine if we could do that between all boys schools. We obviously have huge rivalries with Catholic Central, De La Salle, so that's where I got that idea, and I'm going to include you guys in a lot of ideas too in the future.
Mr. Polis, this question goes to you first. You are asked to speak to a 6th or 8th grader who is on the fence about enrolling at U of D Jesuit. What would you tell him to convince him that U of D Jesuit is the best choice?
Can you repeat that, just the first part?
You were asked to speak to a 6th or 8th grader who is on the fence about enrolling at U of D Jesuit. What would you tell him to convince him that U of D Jesuit is the best choice?
Okay, well, I mean, there's a lot of things I could say. There's the academic aspect, sports. There's so many good things at this school. But I think what would convince them the most is just giving them my story. I was on the fence about coming here. I went to Shrine before U of D, and it was a really hard decision because I had all my friends stay there. I only had a few friends that came here in the 9th grade, so I was on the fence myself. And I think just giving my story, shadowing here in 8th grade, there was this vibe here that I did not experience anywhere else I shadowed, and that really spoke to me. So I think just telling that student my story would really reflect well on the school, and it could stir up some emotion in them rather than just stating a bullet point list of facts, just giving them my story, making it more tied into a person rather than just stating facts. I think that's the best way to convince people to come here.
Mr. Price, your response. You are asked to speak to a 6th or 8th grader who is on the fence about enrolling at U of D Jesuit. What would you tell him to convince him that U of D Jesuit is the best choice?
What I would say is U of D is the best option for him as far as what he wants to do in the future. Me personally, I've been able to invest in my career goals through my biology teacher, as well as what I want to do in college as far as where I want to go. And I feel like I would encourage them to go to U of D in order to make those connections. Whether every day is a struggle or every day is the best thing ever, I would tell them that after he leaves U of D, it would be the best thing possible for him. Obviously, there are struggles at U of D, but I would tell him that at the end it gets better. There's better things at the end of the line once you leave U of D, once you finally get the hang of what U of D has to offer.
Mr. Price, this next question goes to you first. The Senate should be charged with more than events planning. Planning events is much different than initiating cultural change. What changes affecting school culture will you try to make at the High? What changes affecting school culture will you try to make at the high?
So similar to our World Heritage Day, I would encourage all of our students to basically get to know one another. There's a disconnect between what we know about each other and how we interact with each other. And I would say encourage students to find out more about each other, find out where their family comes from, how they can better get along with each other, and various aspects in order to culturally become more aware of what the neighborhood around us in Detroit has to offer, where they live has to offer, and what their family background can say about them.
Mr. Polis, your response?
So one of the biggest changes culturally, I think, is we need to have a better connection between the administration and every student. So that means not just the officers or senators, but every student should be held accountable. Every administrator should be held accountable for what happens. A big thing this year was the parking pass situation, as many of you know who drive to school. And that was just a terrible situation. I don't know how we ever didn't have a connection to see that we shouldn't be handing out more parking passes than there are spots. That creates a problem for the students. And maybe the administration didn't see that because it doesn't affect them, but it affects a lot of you guys, and that's what I care about. So I think we need to have a better accountability from the administration to the student, because at the end of the day, this is our school. We pay to go here, so I think the administration needs to look a little more at what we want and not just, go with whatever they want the whole time.
A quick follow-up, Mr. Price. Can you give us any specific examples of ideas you have for long-term goals that would last after your tenure ends?
So my long-term goals are to better connect administration with the students. Obviously, through my 5 years, I've been able to interact with pretty much all of the faculty members, and to establish connections between each student and their teachers is something that I strive to accomplish. I also plan on having a rewards program. I plan on encouraging students to attend more events in order to get a dress-down day at the end of the year, for a week, getting Fridays off, that kind of thing, and better having access to each other after school.
Mr. Polis, same to you.
So I think another thing that we need to include more of is just diversity at the school. We obviously are at a good place now, but there's always increases we can do in that. One program I'd like to see is possibly partnering people up from each grade, and instead of just the counseling meetings every month, we have a senior, junior, sophomore, freshman, one person from each grade, and they just hang out in a group, maybe 3 groups of people together, play sports, whatever interest that group has. I think that would increase diversity at this school.
Thank you, gentlemen. You heard some interesting ideas. Will the candidates for president please approach the podium? Miles, please introduce yourself, then Eric, you will follow.
What up, Cubs? I'm Miles Hickman, and I'm running to be your Student Senate President. Let me tell you about what U of D is to me. It's brotherhood, it's something greater than us, and it's for the boys. My rich history here at U of D comes from things like the varsity football team, the Student Senate, and I Am Basketball. With everything that's been poured into me, I want to give back in the biggest way possible. I'm going to do this through Boys Night. Let's cut orientation short. Let's grill. Let's listen to music. Let's hang out on the last night of summer. Let's do it. Let's start off the school year in the best way possible with the boys. I also want to promote a stronger Senate, which will put on events, more frequent events for all students. Finally, I want to recognize the athletes for all their hard work that they do in this school. Go the mile with Miles. Thank you.
Hey Cubs, I'm Eric Mitchell. Now, a common question that I get asked is, why am I running for president? What makes me special? And the truth is that I'm running because U of D has been a huge part of my life. I remember watching my 5 older brothers go through U of D, and I couldn't wait to go. Now, in my 5th year at this school, I've been given a great opportunity to give back to it by running for president. I'm not running for myself. I'm not running to put it on a college app or just to say that I did it. I'm running because I love UAD, and I want to use my senior year to give back. I have a lot of goals for next year, but my main goal is this. I want every single student that attends this school to be able to say that they have Cub pride. I don't mean everybody needs to be involved in activity. I just want everyone to say, I go to U of D, and I am proud of that. So vote Eric for Jazz Prez.
Mr. Hickman, as winner of the primaries, you have the option to respond to the following question first or defer to your opponent. The president attends all of the meetings of the school's board of directors, the people who make the big decisions regarding the school's future. At these meetings, you not only get to share news about what the Senate is doing, but you can also make requests on behalf of the student body. If you were sitting before the board right now, today, what request would you present to them on behalf of your fellow Cubs?
All right, Michael, thank you for that question. You know, this school is really special, and there are a lot of different interests, but what I would look for is to really listen to what everyone says. You know, it's kind of hard because the board is such a all-encompassing, big, you know, they look at the big issues, but I would like for them to get to know students. I want them to go talk to freshmen. I don't want them to be just a high-up board that's tucked away and that no one's seen. I want them to talk to freshmen. I want them to talk to academy students. I want them to be connected with the student body. So I'm not going to talk about any specific issue that I want to bring forth. I want them to be close enough that they already know what the students want. I want them to understand the depths and the inner workings of this school, because I can represent as much as I can, but at the end of the day, they're the ones making the decision, so I want them to be the closest to the source, the closest to the lifeblood of this school. Thank you.
Mr. Mitchell, the same question to you. You have 1 minute to respond.
So I've been to one of those meetings on behalf of the band, and I'll tell you that there is a lot more on their plate than just U of D. Just what the students go on, they have to work on the finances and all of that. So while I would love that everybody could go see the board personally, the fact is that we have the Senate so that they don't have to. The Senate should be able to already represent them well enough. It is important for students to get their voices heard. So for that, I would say, instead of the town halls, which I like, but not enough students go to, we had monthly surveys in the cafeteria to get students' voices heard. You know, quick survey, what did you think of past events? What do you want to see change? And we take that to the board, we take that to the Senate meetings so that we get more voices heard, but in a way that is possible and realistic. Thank you.
Mr. Hickman, I'd like to ask a follow-up question. So you stated that you wanted the board to just know and be super close with the students, but how do you plan on clearly communicating all the students' wishes to the point where they just know?
Okay, so the way that they'll be connected to the students is simply they'll talk to them. However we'll organize it, we'll have like focus groups where the board will talk to students, where the students can voice their concerns. I don't want only the student senate to be the representation of the student body. Yes, that's the job of the student senate, but I want there to be another avenue so that students also feel valued.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchell, you'd like a rebuttal?
So I think that small group that is supposed to talk to the board already has a name known as the Student Senate. The Student Senate is already selected by the students. So if you want your voice to be heard, pick somebody who is going to get your voice heard, who knows what you want, who is willing to talk with each and every student here, and send them as the representative to talk to the council. Thank you.
Mr. Mitchell, this question goes to you first. Name 2 things that impressed you about this year's Senate. How will you build on those successes?
So the first thing that I was very impressed with is the monthly town halls. That was something that, in my 5 years here, has really been the closest I've seen to trying to get students' voices heard. And unfortunately, people are busy, people are disinterested, and they just don't have time to go. So to fix that, like I said, monthly surveys, quick, you can do it during lunch, we can email it to you afterwards if you miss it. Just a minute or two, that'll get students' voices heard. Another thing that I thought was very impressive was the overall growth of Cub Pride at this school. I feel like the Senate has done a good job of keeping kids motivated. Interesting events like the pep rally from last week was very exciting. I know a lot of student sections have been good, so just getting kids involved, getting more voices heard, doing things that they want to see, they want to hear. So that all comes down to communication. How do we find out? How do we hear? How do we know what people want? That's what's really important.
Thank you. Mr. Hickman, your response?
Yeah, so the surveys and the interviews, those are great, but I feel like what really touched on the school spirit was the big events that we had frequently. You know, I'm a co-chair of the Student Activities Committee, and myself, my fellow co-chairs, and all my guys, we worked hard. The backfield blast, the movie nights, to the different trips, the frequent events where a student, or you can have a big or small group of students, going to a place. I feel like that really helped people see that the Senate is something that you can be a part of, weekly, bi-weekly. It's not just something that you see every now and then. It's not just the icebreaker. Also, I like the small events like the shoe competition, the shoe game competition, like the small events that you see every now and then. They're in your face, and the dress down days. Those are personal, they're intimate, and it really lets students know that the Student Senate cares. Thank you.
Mr. Mitchell, I'd like to ask a follow-up question. You stated that students already don't find the time to attend town hall meetings, so how will you guarantee that they'll take surveys in homeroom or that are in their email?
So, as I said earlier, the surveys aren't during homeroom. They would be during lunches. So if you've ever signed up for a tournament here, like the 2K or the Smash Bros. Tournament, we set up small tables in the cafeteria. I'm saying we do that once a month, have kids come in. It's a short survey, only 2-3 minutes. We'll give them something, maybe like a piece of candy, and we'll just say, hey, this is quick, doesn't eat up your time. And that's easy, and it's a good way to get voices heard.
Thank you for your response. This next question goes to Mr. Hickman first. Do you feel the efforts to recognize the racial, socioeconomic, and religious diversities at the high has been successfully addressed by the Senate? Please give 2 examples that justify your answer.
Okay. First, I want to start off by saying it will never be perfect. There will always be a different definition of success based on what people see. I feel like the Student Senate has been doing a good job in terms of racial, socioeconomic, religious relations. What I've seen within the Senate is that people go out of their way to specifically choose different people. With the student faculty basketball game, we tried to pick different people from different grades. There was a quota on how many freshmen, how many sophomores, how many academy students, So we made sure that all different types of people are included. And we're not going to be colorblind. We understand, and we're not going to be, group blind or clique blind. We see there are different pockets of friends, and what we chose to do was we wanted to reach into those groups, and we wanted to pick people from different pockets that represented all the students of U of D. So I feel like they've been doing a great job. And just in terms of diversity of events, the events that they put on have been, broad range, Smash Bros, 2K, movie nights, murder mystery dinner, backfield blast, different events that appeal to everyone. So I feel like the Student Senate has been doing a great job of that.
Mr. Mitchell, the same question to you. You have 1 minute to respond.
The thing about UAD is we are one brotherhood. We are all one student body together. And I've grown up with 6 brothers, and I know that just because we're brothers doesn't mean that we're not different. I feel like every kid should be able to express himself. We already do that with the dress code, which is nice. We allow kids to wear more than other schools do with uniforms. But I think that events like the World Language and Heritage Day, this is the second one we've had this year, and it was really good. I liked it. And then the things like the diversity of UD really shines in the clubs. Just take a look at the club list on Mudge. It's wonderful. It's huge. There are so many things. Celtic Club, Arabic Club, Diversity Union, Base. If you've ever gone to one of those meetings, you will see UD's different. We allow kids to show that. Thank you.
This next question goes to you first, Mr. Mitchell. Based on the Senate rankings, the presidential candidates received extremely high rankings, nearly perfect. A 5 indicates that you have already reached your maximum potential. How can we expect you to grow in office if you're already at your max?
So the Senate ratings, for those who don't know, are determined by the 5 current Senate officers and Ms. Ong have a meeting with the candidates one-on-one and discuss them. And based on that, they give a rating. Now, for my interview, I had all 5. I know that some people didn't have all 5, and that would definitely affect it. But I just think that as human beings, to kind of say that we've reached our max point ever is just asinine. Like, we are men for others, but we're also open to growth. You can't grow if you've already reached your max. You're not supposed to peak before you've even begun. So I think that I received a high Senate rating of 4.8, but I feel that might have been too much because honestly, I don't think that I'm the best I can be yet. I don't think that I'm near that, and I want to always keep improving, always keep growing, always be able to give more, be more, do more, and say more. I want to represent UD, but I know that one person couldn't necessarily do that alone, especially because nobody's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hickman, your response?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Based on the Senate rankings, the presidential candidates received extremely high rankings, nearly perfect. A 5 indicates that you have already reached your maximum potential. How can we expect you to grow in office if you're already at the max?
Okay, thank you, Chris, for the question. I like Senate ratings. I appreciate them. They're kind of like a starting indicator of what a candidate is about and how related he is to U of D. But being frank, I don't care about a Senate rating. What really matters is go talk to my friends. Go talk to the people who've gone to different events. Go talk to, my teammates. Go talk to different people and ask, what is this guy about? Everyone has flaws. Everyone has strengths and weaknesses, but I feel like the Senate rating doesn't matter as much. What matters is the personal connections that you make with people, how people see you as a leader, how effective you are. So I'm nowhere near perfect. To me, it's just a number. I appreciate it, but that's not what I'm focused on. Thank you.
Thank you. On that sentiment, Mr. Mitchell, a follow-up, what rubric elements should be included in the Senate's rankings criteria to make the final ranking a more real picture of the candidate?
I think Miles touched on a very important thing. I think that although the officers should be pretty, connected to who they're interviewing, I think that something that should be important is let's ask students, let's ask fellow classmates, people from other grades specifically, like, have you heard of this person? What do you know about them? What do you think about them? And I also think that on top of that, there should be kind of an idea of who is this person? Give a bio of who that person is on top of the ranking.
Thank you. Miles, your rebuttal?
Obviously there's going to be some bias within the Senate ratings, but I feel like the number will never be fully representative. It's just some ballpark estimate based on people who already have an opinion, which is fine. You need some sort of standard, but I would divide the different categories up into more subsections, like school spirit, not only school spirit, but not only the sports games, but, quiz bowl events, things that people don't really go to, small events. Thank you.
Mr. Mitchell, I have a follow-up question for you. Do you believe people will truly vote for you based off your rating, or do you believe it is a useless system?
I don't think the ratings really matter. If you look at the ratings and then look at who gets elected year by year, it's not always the same way. So I think the rankings give kind of, a short description kind of who it is, but who you are really comes through in how you speak, how you portray yourself, how others see you. The rankings are a closed system, but a candidate has to be open to everything, not just that number. Thank you.
Mr. Hickman, the same question to you.
Yeah, absolutely. The rankings, in terms of their importance, they're okay. What I feel like people should really put value in, like I said earlier, is who that person is. Have they come up to you, or when you talk to them, what kind of person are they? How do they treat you? Rankings, I feel like we can do without them. If the Senate wants to keep them in, I don't feel like it's an issue, but I would have no problem doing away with it.
That closes the 2019 Senate debates. Thank you, gentlemen.